How does a wedding night mistake become a stack of papers handed to me under bright courthouse lights while he thanks the server and leaves? Why did one private choice with my ex turn into dates, rules, and temporary orders that tell me where I can live and what I can touch? Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. I'm Isola Valrin, 31. The voice that books eye checks and smiles from behind a counter. I married Calder Reed last month. Our townhouse is small and neat, with a wall planner that makes our life look calm. I tell people we are fine. I tell myself the same thing when the rooms feel stiff and bright. I spent my wedding night with my ex, Rowan, after the reception. I called it closure. I said the hotel corridor was noisy and that the camera angle lied. Calder asked how late I stayed out. I said I lost track in the crowd. He asked if I was safe. I said he was being dramatic. I liked the sound of my words more than the shape of the truth. The morning after, Calder moved a pillow to the guest room for sleep. I said he was punishing me. He said we needed quiet. My sister Nadia texted that I had cold feet and should spin it as nerves. His mother, Marit, sent a short note about keeping routines for Finn, their nephew, who stays with us often. I posted a soft photo and wrote that love is a journey. The likes were slow. On the fridge planner, a new pencil entry appeared, downtown 9:35. I asked if it was an errand. He said it was personal. His phone lit once with meeting, personal, and went dark. The printer at home spat a blank page and smelled like toner. 2 mugs sat on opposite counters like chess pieces. I told myself I could fix this with charm and the right story. I believed it because I wanted to. The kitchen felt like a stage I could reset. I wiped the counter, though it was clean, and set 2 mugs, one by the kettle for me, and one near the sink where Calder usually stood. 2 mugs mean marriage. That was my thought as I lined them up like props. The wall planner beside the fridge held straight boxes and soft pencil. A new note sat there that I had not written, downtown 9:35. I traced the numbers with a finger and told myself it was a hardware errand or a bank thing, not a message for me. Calder came in quiet and looked more awake than I wanted. He asked how I slept. I said fine because fine is an easy bridge. He asked if I had told the truth about the hotel corridor. I said the hallway was loud and the camera angle lied. He asked how late I was with Rowan. I said time slips at weddings and that I lost track in the crowd. He asked if I was safe. I said he was being dramatic. I liked the flow of my words. He did not touch his mug. He took another one from the back of the shelf and stood at the far counter to pour his coffee. The space between us felt like tape on the floor. I called the night with Rowan closure. I said closure was healthy and brave. I said most brides panic. I said I was honest now and honesty cures fear. He asked what I meant by honest. I said I told him the truth already and that should count more than a clip taken by people who chase drama. He placed his cup in a careful position on the counter, like he was measuring distance in inches. He said we needed quiet in the house. I said quiet is how people make a prison. My phone buzzed with a text from Nadia. She wrote that cold feet happen and that I should frame it as nerves. I showed Calder the screen and said my own sister understood. He said sisters protect sisters. I said husbands should do the same. He looked at the planner without moving his eyes. The pencil line rested there, as if it had grown roots overnight. I opened a drawer for napkins and found a thin binder labeled utilities. It was thicker than bills, with plastic sleeves and tiny flags. I asked why we had a binder like that. He said it kept the house in order. I said order is a hobby, not a life. Inside the drawer lay a sticky note that said bring forms. I told myself forms were not for me. I shut the drawer, and the wood made a soft hush like a curtain lowering. My gallery still held too many pictures from the reception. Faces swam, lights winked, and in the set there was one shot of a door with a gold number and the edge of Rowan's shoulder. I pressed and hid it in a private folder. Hiding felt like breathing. I told myself pictures lie more than people do. Then I told myself people lie because pictures demand it. Calder asked if I was ready for the day. I said yes and started packing a small tote, even though I had nowhere to go. I said I would pick up champagne flutes from the event rental, as if we were still in the soft afterglow of a party. He said we had work and a house to keep steady. I said steadiness chokes love. He did not reply. He rinsed his mug and set it upside down to dry. Finn arrived for the morning because he stays with us often while his mother works. He asked if the honeymoon suitcase was still in the hall because we forgot something. I laughed and said we postponed the trip. Calder said we needed time. Finn asked if adults get timeouts like kids. I said sometimes grown-ups need to stand in corners and think. He nodded with exaggerated seriousness, then asked if he could draw on the back of a grocery list. Calder said yes and handed him a pen without looking at me. I posted a soft photo from a week ago, a sun flare on our balcony, and wrote that love is a journey and the best part is learning. Likes came slow. Mr. Klein, from the HOA, passed by the front window with his dog and looked in for a second too long. I smiled through the glass and held it until my cheeks ached. People should see a smile when they choose a story. Before Calder left for work, his phone lit up with a small alert that read, "Meeting, personal." It flashed and went dark. I asked if it was an errand for us. He said it was his day. I said personal means the two of us. He said personal meant him. He took his keys, and a tiny new key sat beside the fob like a quiet seed. He put the keys in his pocket. The guest room door had been left half open since last night. Now he pushed it, and it closed the rest of the way. The latch clicked. It was not loud, but it was the only sound in the house for a breath. Work was supposed to be my safe room. I managed the front desk. I can smooth anyone with a calm voice and a payment plan. I wore a soft blue blouse and told myself color can heal a story. The clinic's glass walls were clean, so I could see my posture from every angle. I greeted the first patient and complimented a scarf. The act felt normal, which I needed. At 10:30, Ria sent a calendar invite that said quick word. I walked into her small office, where the glass gave us privacy by pretending to. She asked how I was. I said excellent and busy. She asked if I knew about a tagged photo from the wedding night. I said yes, and that friends love to make jokes online. She asked if I understood that patients follow staff and that the photo looked intimate. I said off hours are off limits and that a woman laughing in a hallway is not a scandal. She asked if I could take a break from posting for a bit. I said I would consider it. I used my professional tone, the one that says, I know policy better than anyone. She thanked me and moved on to schedules. Back at the desk, a regular patient smiled and said he saw a nice reel from my reception. He asked if the musician was a friend. I said he was an old classmate who played a set. He said it looked like a great party. I said it was beautiful and that big nights can be messy because love is bright. He laughed in a polite way and signed his form. I decided this was proof that I was still charming. On my break, I went to the pharmacy for water and mints. The lights there always feel like they tell the truth without asking. Calder met me at the door because I said I wanted to talk. He asked about Finn's pickup and whether I could take the early time. I said logistics were not the point. He said logistics are how families walk through hard days. I said our hard day was one night, and it needed a soft hug, not a plan. His phone lit with a call that read private. He stepped outside and put on headphones. Through the glass, I saw him speak in a quiet, even way that made my stomach flip. I told myself he was talking to Jules about schedules. I also told myself he was rehearsing a play I could not see. He came back in and asked if I had what I needed. I said I needed him to say he believed me. He said facts matter more than posts. I said posts shape facts. He asked again about pickup. I said I would take it and he could handle bedtime. He nodded like he was marking a line on a chart. At the magazine rack, Mr. Klein stood with a home and garden issue. He asked if we were settling into married life. I said we were thriving and learning each day. He nodded slowly and said he liked to see people organized. The word organized felt like a side glance. I laughed lightly and changed the subject to weather. He looked up at the bright ceiling tiles. The conversation ended like a door that does not slam, only closes. When I came home that evening, the printer in the corner made a warm hum and spit out a single blank page. The smell of toner hung like cold metal. I asked if the printer was broken. Calder said he was testing it. I said printing without ink is performative. He did not look at me. He moved the blank sheet to the recycle stack and wiped the tray as if the act had weight. His laptop sat open on the dining table. The screen showed a spreadsheet with initials and dates. The moment I stepped closer, he minimized the window. He asked me not to use his computer. I said I was just moving past. He said he was tracking tasks, so he would not say things in anger. I said anger is honest and honesty heals. He said notes protect people. I said notes are how people build cages and call them calm. A small alert flashed on his phone and vanished as if it had not been there. I saw the title before it disappeared. Meeting, personal. A minute later, another calendar block slid in and dimmed. Downtown, 14:10. I told myself it was a client or an errand. I also told myself the times felt like pebbles dropped one by one into a jar I could not see. I posted a bright breakfast photo from last week with a caption about routine. Ria sent a message that said to consider stepping back from social for a while. I typed that I would try. I did not mean it. Nadia posted a boomerang from the reception that said, "Best night with a heart." I added it to my story and wrote that joy is loud. Calder saw my phone and said we were not going to argue online. I said I was protecting our story. He said the internet is not ours, it is a wave. I said he always chooses metaphors when he wants to look wise. On the stairwell that night, I carried laundry up and heard footsteps pause on the landing above me. A faint beep cut off. It sounded like a recording app stopping when I came close. I looked up and saw Calder standing near the guest room with his phone in his hand. I asked if he was recording me. He said he was making notes, so he remembered what he wanted to say. I said that sounded like a clerk making a case. He said, "Careful is not cruel." I said careful feels like cruelty with better manners. He asked if I needed help with the basket. I said no, because help is a small victory I do not want him to claim. I finished folding and went to the kitchen. I set 2 mugs on opposite counters again and took a photo. I posted it with the caption teamwork. Likes were slow again. Through the window, I saw Mr. Klein stop by his mailbox and glance toward our porch light. He did not wave. I told myself neighbors love a story, and I would still be the writer. In the living room, the printer hummed once more and then went quiet. I felt my chest tighten like the sound had found a nerve. Calder moved through the room with steady steps. He did not touch me. He did not raise his voice. He checked the wall planner and circled Friday in red. I picked up the pen and wrote dinner with family next to it, as if my handwriting could pull us back to a normal table. I decided to retell my wedding night until it sounded right. People kept sending me clips and asking what really happened after the reception. I said I would post my own thread soon. I said memory is soft and needs a gentle hand. I meant my hand. In my version, the rooftop bar was gold, the air warm, and I was only a new wife who loves a crowd. The band ended a set, and Rowan leaned into the microphone to tease a college song Calder used to like. I lifted my glass because someone shouted for a toast. I always lift first. It looks brave. I said love is work and parties are our reward. The room cheered before I finished because clapping is easier than thinking. Calder stood near the edge of the group with a quiet face. I looked at the middle of his face and called it a smile. The DJ pushed the volume up. I stepped toward the door to get air. The hotel corridor carried the bass like the floor was breathing. Rowan followed with a joke about the playlist. I said I could barely hear. I put my hand on the wall because heels and old carpet make a wobble. His shoulder was the nearest point where my balance might land. I called it balance in my head and held the word like a shield. Down the corridor, a bridesmaid lifted her phone. The flash popped. Light makes every lean look like a choice. We cut the cake inside. I fed Calder a small forkful and said we were a team. He thanked me and handed the plate to a cousin. The fork clinked like a bell I did not like. Rowan tapped a rhythm on the table and called the night legend. I said legends are just loud people with better light. People laughed. I let them laugh because laughter is a kind of vote. Later, I drifted back toward the corridor to thank a server. Rowan leaned to ask if I would sing the last verse as a dare. My mouth went near his ear because the room was noise. I thought this will be a story. I did not think who would write it. The phone flash hit again. Someone said, "Got it," the way someone says a net is full. The flash becomes the whole night for anyone who was not there. In my memory, the concrete was uneven, the air cool, my face tired. In their phones, there is a door and a shoulder and light that lies. I say this as if it can move the pixels. After the reception, the parking garage felt colder than the street. Calder's car was already parked nose out, like it wanted to leave before we did. He opened the trunk to tuck away leftover favors. The air smelled faintly like printer toner, that dry office smell. A clipboard lay half under his jacket. The top sheet showed a single word in clean type, statement. I asked if he'd started journaling. He said notes kept him from saying things wrong. I said notes are how people hide knives. He closed the trunk softly and did not argue. I texted that I needed a ride and got no answer. I rode home alone, with my veil on my lap, like a napkin someone forgot to clear. When I pulled into our street, a cloud sync bubble slid across my phone. File uploaded successfully. I told myself it was the night backing up to a safe place. I told myself safe means controlled. Inside, the lights were already low. Calder rinsed plates and folded napkins. He looked like a person who had chosen a job over a fight. I started my thread. Bright balcony photo, small caption about big feelings, a line about nerves and pressure. I said closure is not cheating, it is cleaning the room before moving in. The comment hearts came in soft and slow like pity does. I preferred speed, but I took what came. At the dining table, Calder's laptop was open with a spreadsheet filled with initials and dates in straight rows. When I went near, he minimized the window and plugged in a small USB stick. He lifted a tiny piece of tape and wrote the date, then slid the stick under a folder labeled taxes in the side drawer. I said he was acting like a clerk in his own home. He said memory is safer when copied. I said memory is kinder when left inside. He said, kind has not helped us yet. He kept his voice low and level. I hate level. It makes me feel like stairs. A new reminder blinked on his phone. Downtown 1605. He tapped and it vanished. I said he was collecting secret times like trophies. He said he was collecting calm. I said, calm is how people hide the sharp parts. He looked at the wall planner, not at me. I stood in the hall and listened to the house breathe. I planned family dinner like a public cure. We met at a bright restaurant with paper menus and long tables. I wore a gentle dress because gentle reads as truth. Marit arrived in a tidy coat and hugged Finn first. She greeted me with a small nod that felt like a rule. Nadia blew in late with lipstick like a flag and said fun fixes everything. I believed her for the length of a breath. The table filled with cousins and noise. I stood for a quick toast to second chances. I said weddings are heavy, and sometimes feelings crack the floor, but love is the crew that fixes it. I kept my eyes on Calder. He kept his on the water pitcher, steady and dull. Marit did not raise her glass. She asked how Finn was sleeping with the new routine. I said he is easy when the house stays bright. Marit said children read rooms before they read books. I said, poetry is not a plan. The server set plates down. I made small jokes and raced the conversation so no one could place a question. Nadia squeezed my hand under the table, then let go. Calder asked Finn about soccer. I leaned toward Calder and said we should announce that we are okay. He said we should be okay, not announce it. I said the room needs reassurance. He said Finn needs structure. The word structure turned the air into boxes. Finn looked at me and tilted his head like a bird. He asked why Uncle Calder sleeps in the other bed if we just got married. The Forks paused. I laughed softly and said he snores, and adults play musical chairs when they are tired. Finn asked if that is part of weddings. Calder said routines help people feel safe. Murrett set her napkin down and said peace is built by quiet steps. I felt my face turn into something tight that smiles anyway. I raised my glass again and tried a new speech about closure and history. I said Rowan and I said goodbye like decent people. I said the hallway was loud and the photo angle lied. Murrett watched me like she was reading a ledger. Jules, one of Calder's co-workers, had come by for dessert and sat 2 seats down. He looked at his plate like it held a map. Nadia whispered that maybe I should slow down with posts. I said posts keep stories honest. She said phones keep stories alive after the breath leaves. She went to the restroom and returned with eyes that would not land. The check came. Calder placed his card on the tray without a word. The motion felt like a line drawn on a map I could not change. I announced we would take a short walk to the park because air helps. No one argued. The park had a mild wind. Finn ran to the swings. I tried to take a soft photo of the sunset behind him. My hands shook and the frame tilted. Finn asked if weddings are supposed to be happy all week. I said yes, and that we are just getting used to the new schedule. Calder said change takes time and steady steps. Merritt said attention is a promise and should not be thrown at others. I said I was only being social. She said steadiness is not coldness. The wind moved the leaves the way whispering moves a room. Back home, the balcony held a clean night. I brewed tea and placed 2 mugs on opposite counters again, mine by the kettle, his near the sink. I said we should present unity to the family. He said he would be respectful and clear, not performative. I said clarity is a punishment you can frame as virtue. He said boundaries are care when feelings mislead. I said he liked rules more than people. He said rules protect people when rooms go loud. The words sat between us like chess pieces we refused to touch. I drifted to the living room and lifted his laptop lid with 2 fingers. The desktop woke. 2 new folders sat on a clean background, Archive A and Archive B. The names looked like files you keep when you want to win an argument without speaking. He came from the hall and lowered the lid, not fast, but final. I said, archiving your life is creepy. He said truth survives storms when it is stored right. I said storms pass on their own. He said not if you feed them. The wall planner glowed under the kitchen light. A heavy red circle sat around Friday. Next to it, a pencil note had appeared. Downtown 1020. Different times, new days, never explained. I wrote dinner with family, next to the circle, as if my handwriting could move gravity. Outside, Mr. Klein stood by his mailbox and studied the envelopes like they might confess their owners. He looked up at our window, then away, like a person who does not want to be caught watching a show he likes. We needed milk. Nadia said she would come with me, then texted she was tired and would not take sides. I took Finn to the supermarket for a treat instead. In the checkout line, a neighbor I barely know asked if we were happy newlyweds. I said yes and laughed. The scanner beeped like a metronome. Finn asked if people clap for beds in different rooms. I said no and changed the subject to candy. The neighbor looked at the floor tiles. I paid and kept my smile on until we reached the door. On the stairwell, the grocery bag pulled at my hand. Halfway up, I heard footsteps pause on the landing above me. A faint beep cut off, the same quick sound I'd heard before, like a recording app stopping when a door opens. I climbed faster. Calder stood near the guest room, phone in his hand, face calm. I asked if he was keeping track of my words. He said he was keeping track of his own. I said that is the same as keeping mine. He said it is different. He stepped into the guest room. The door eased almost shut. I set the milk in the fridge and stared at the 2 mugs still sitting apart. The printer in the corner gave a small warm breath and then was still. On the desk, a small unfamiliar key lay next to his wallet. I touched it and put it back exactly. In the study, a cloud sync bubble flickered on his laptop and disappeared. File uploaded successfully. I told myself it was nothing. I told myself words still outrun paper if you say them with enough light. I booked a small conference nook at a co-working space by the river and sent Calder a shared invite. I wrote that we could talk like adults. He arrived on time with that quiet posture that makes a room feel measured. I placed his favorite pastry on the table and called it a peace flag. He thanked me and asked about Finn's week, pickup times, homework, bedtime. I said logistics were not love. He said families walk on logistics when feelings slip. I leaned in and said we should cancel the noise and start fresh. I said the wedding night was a confusion that should not set our whole life. He said he heard my words and wanted calm, not performance. I said calm is what people call cold when they want to look noble. He said clarity is what stops harm. He kept his voice low, and the HVAC hummed like a quiet judge. On the chair beside him sat a clipboard with a single word at the top, statement. I tilted my head to read more. He moved it a little without hurry. I asked if he was collecting speeches. He said notes help him avoid saying things he cannot take back. I said notes are knives with handles wrapped in paper. He did not bite. He asked again which days I could take Finn. I picked 2 at random and felt rebellious for no reason. We walked to the pharmacy because I said I needed ginger chews. The light there is always serious. His phone lit with a call labeled private. He stepped outside, put on headphones, and paced under the awning. His mouth moved slow, like a person dictating a recipe. I told myself he was speaking to Jules. I also told myself he was building a wall with sentences I could not hear. When he returned, he asked if I had what I needed. I said I needed my husband back. He said I had him as a steady person, not as a stage partner. In the parking garage, he opened his trunk to slide his bag in. 3 clean binders sat in a row. Home, auto, bank. Clear sleeves caught the low light. A single USB stick had a strip of tape with today's date. On his keyring, a small unfamiliar key flashed. I asked what it opened. He said it opened what needed opening. I called that cryptic. He said it was accurate. We drove home in 2 cars again. In the study, his laptop screen woke when he touched the trackpad. Tabs flashed and hid. Storage options, delivery tracking, notary near me. A cloud sync bubble flickered. File uploaded successfully. I stared at the fern on the shelf so I would not react. He slid a small drawer and turned the tiny key. It locked with a clean click that made my mouth dry. I tried a last trick. I said I might fall apart if this kept going. I said I could not eat or sleep with silence in the house. He watched me like a person watching the tide and said threats were not a path. He said if I needed help, we would call my doctor or his mother, and he would drive. He said fear would not steer our home. I told him he had learned to sound good while he hurt me. He said words would not save us, but steps might. At dinner, Finn talked about a science project. I reached for Calder's wrist. He moved his hand away gently and asked Finn to describe the poster. The moment was small and heavy. After bedtime, I stood in the hall, and the shredder hummed for 3 seconds and stopped. He checked the wall planner. A reminder appeared on his phone and vanished. Downtown 1545. I said he was building a theater. He said he would handle things properly. He said the word evenly, like a lever pulled. I told him properly is a slogan for people who cannot forgive. He said properly is protection, then turned off the lamp. I chose a public fix, because light makes people choose kindness. I went to the courthouse at lunch and waited by the directory screens. The lobby had high ceilings that made footsteps echo. I rehearsed a speech about love and work and how pressure bends people. I told myself if I reached for his hand in front of everyone, he would remember we were a team. Jules walked in first and saw me. He asked if I was meeting Calder. I said yes, and that we would clear the air. He nodded and stood by a pillar like a quiet witness. Calder came a minute later, 3 paces from the security desk, bag strapped straight on his shoulder. He stopped with calm eyes. I stepped forward and said we should talk and end this distance. He said we would follow the plan. I asked what plan. He said the one that keeps things clear and civil. I said, clarity is a cage. He said clarity is how a home stands. From a bench near the corridor, a man in a neutral jacket stood and said my full name. The sound carried in the marble. He asked if I was that person. I said yes because it was my name, and because the whole room felt like a stage. He handed a stack into my hands and said the delivery was complete. The paper had weight that made my fingers cold. The top page said petition. There were temporary orders about the residence and property use. There were lines about access to accounts and a freeze on drastic changes. There was a schedule for any family logistics we share. Written messages only, no scenes, calm exchanges. It named a date soon for a first event in a process with steps. It spoke in clean lines, not anger. The words made a shape around my life. I told Calder we could fix this at home. He said we would follow the orders. I said he was choosing strangers over his wife. He said he was choosing stability. I said he was humiliating me. He said public harm had started in public. Public repair would begin with rules. He thanked the server for being professional. The man nodded and walked away toward the directory. People nearby pretended to look at their phones. My phone buzzed. Merritt texted that routine helps Finn and we should follow the schedule. Nadia wrote that she loved me but could not fix this. I stared at the messages and could not bend them. I said to Calder that I never meant to hurt him. He said we would use the written channel from now on. He said he would see me according to the orders. His voice stayed even. He did not raise it for me or for the room. The elevator bell chimed. Jules held the door with a quiet hand. Calder stepped back toward it, still watching me without reaching. I stepped forward, but the distance did not move. He said, "Take care and follow the schedule." He said we would both be okay if we did the steps. The doors waited like a held breath. Security asked softly if I was all right. I said I was fine, because fine is a word that fits any room. The word temporary near the top of the order looked like a stamp. The marble reflected me smaller than I wanted to be. The elevator bell chimed again. Calder thanked Jules and stepped inside. The doors slid together with a quiet seal. The weight of the stack rested in my hands, and the result sat in the bright air with me. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next story. Write in the comments from which city you are watching.